When you first hear about the Nikon ZR, it almost sounds like fiction. A new kind of camera for Nikon. Neither a mirrorless DSLR successor nor a cinema rig, but something that lives between both worlds. Nikon is calling it a Z cinema model, but the truth is, this thing is more than a category. It's a statement. A message from Nikon that says, we're not afraid to start over. For decades, Nikon has built its reputation on reliability, on craftsmanship, and on that mechanical feel that photographers trust. Every click of the shutter on a Nikon carries years of refinement. But in 2025, the creative world looks very different. Shooters aren't just photographers anymore. They're filmmakers, vloggers, hybrid storytellers who move seamlessly between stills and motion. And Nikon knows that if it wants to stay relevant in this new era, it needs to build something that speaks to both sides. Enter the Nikon ZR. At first glance, it looks simple, almost too simple. Gone are the bulky shapes, the heavy lines, the maze of buttons that made older cameras feel like control panels. The ZR strips that away. It's smooth, minimal, and elegant. But under that clean surface lies one of Nikon's most fascinating experiments yet. Pick it up, and you'll notice immediately it's light. Not mirrorless light. Actually light. The kind of light that makes you want to carry it everywhere, toss it in your bag, and shoot just because you can. The first shock comes when you look for the viewfinder and realize it isn't there. No AOF, no optical path, just a massive, bright, 4-inch LCD staring back at you. For many Nikon veterans, that's almost heresy. A Nikon without a viewfinder? But here's the twist. Once you start using it, that absence starts to make sense. Shooting without pressing your face against a small window frees you. You see the world differently. You stop hiding behind the camera. You start interacting with your subject. Whether you're doing portraits, street, or product shots, it feels less like operating a machine and more like collaborating with light. The LCD itself is beautiful. 4 inches, ultra bright, with deep contrast and color accuracy that pops even in daylight. Nikon clearly knows this screen is the heart of the ZR experience. It's your composition tool, your exposure meter, your monitor. The touchscreen response is silky. Scrolling through settings, pinching to zoom, or navigating menus feels intuitive, not clunky. Speaking of menus, Nikon kept the DNA you already know. If you've ever used a Z6, Z7, or even a ZF, you'll feel right at home. The same logical layout, the same color-coded icons, the same pencil custom menu section. But there's a clever new touch, the 3-line button on the side. A single tap opens the quick access menu. Hold it, and you dive into the full setup. It's subtle, but it changes how you flow through the camera. Once you get used to it, it feels elegant. There's a philosophy behind that change. Nikon wants you to slow down, not in a frustrating way, but in a mindful way. The ZR rewards intentional shooting. It doesn't push you to spray frames or rely on automation. Instead, it gives you the tools, the feedback, and the clarity to make each shot deliberate. Now let's talk buttons, or rather the lack of them. Across the top of the body, you'll find just 3 main custom buttons labeled 1, 2, and 3. At first, that seems almost minimalist to a fault. But the beauty is in how configurable they are. Out of the box, button 1 handles exposure compensation, button 2 switches your shooting mode, and button 3 toggles display views. But within minutes, you can reassign them to anything: ISO, white balance, autofocus area, even frame rate switching. And this is where Nikon's genius shines. Because the ZR lacks dedicated dials for every function, it forces you to design your own ergonomics. You build the control layout that fits your shooting style. Once you do, it becomes second nature. Your fingers learn where everything is, and the simplicity becomes an advantage rather than a limitation. If you're a manual shooter, the first thing you'll probably do is turn button 1 into your ISO control. It's a small tweak that changes everything. Suddenly, aperture, shutter, and ISO are all within a finger's reach, and the camera feels as fluid as Nikon's Pro bodies. Once you customize those keys, the ZR stops feeling stripped down, it feels streamlined. Of course, there's still the elephant in the room. How does it perform outdoors, under harsh light? when that beautiful screen becomes a mirror. Surprisingly well, though it's not perfect. The panel is brighter than any previous Nikon mirrorless display, but glare still happens. When it does, the histogram becomes your best friend. It's not enabled by default. You'll have to turn it on, but once you do, it's indispensable. Think of it like flying by instruments. Even when the sun washes out your image, the histogram tells you exactly where your exposure sits. You can balance highlights and shadows with confidence. Many professionals actually prefer shooting this way once they adapt. It teaches you to trust data and intuition together, not just your eyes. Nikon gives you 4 levels of display information, everything from a clean, distraction-free view to a fully detailed overlay. You can assign one of your custom buttons to cycle through them. Want a minimalist composition screen for portraits? Done. Need the histogram front and center for a tricky landscape? One tap and it's there. And then there's the body itself. The lack of a viewfinder means the top profile is flatter, sleeker. The grip has been reshaped, not as deep as the Z6, but more comfortable than it looks. It feels balanced in the hand, with just enough depth to anchor larger lenses. The moment you wrap your fingers around it, you realize Nikon put serious thought into weight distribution. Another clever design decision: no more metal strap triangles. If you've used previous Z cameras, you know those little rings that attach your strap always seem to rattle or dig into your fingers. The ZR eliminates them completely. Instead, you get clean lugs that let you attach a strap directly. Silent, smooth, and out of the way. It's the kind of quality of life change only longtime Nikon shooters truly appreciate. Now let's talk balance literally. Because the ZR is so light, lens pairing changes its handling dramatically. Mount a small prime like the 35mm f/1.8 or the 50mm f/1.8, and it feels like an everyday travel camera. Fast, agile, spontaneous. Throw on a 24 to 70mm f/2.8, and it's still surprisingly stable. Nikon's internal weight balance pulls the center of gravity back toward your hand, so even heavier glass doesn't feel front-heavy. For handheld video shooters, that's a huge win. Speaking of video, remember, Nikon calls this a Z cinema model for a reason. It's built to bridge stills and motion. You get oversampled 4K, a flat in-log profile, full-size HDMI out, and clean internal audio preamps. But what really changes the experience is how you use it. With no EVF, you're composing off that big screen, just like you would on a dedicated cinema camera. It pushes you to frame more thoughtfully, to think like a director rather than a photographer. There's also the front record button, small but mighty. By default, it's for video, but Nikon gives you the freedom to assign it to anything in stills mode. Instant zoom, crop switching between FX and DX, white balance preset, focus magnifier. You decide. That single button can save you seconds during fast-paced shoots, and those seconds often mean the difference between catching a moment and missing it. Let's talk philosophy for a moment, because that's where the Nikon ZR really separates itself. This isn't a camera trying to impress you with megapixels or frame rates. It's not shouting specs at you. It's whispering ideas. It's saying, what if we gave you less but better? What if, instead of giving you 20 buttons you rarely touch, we gave you 3 that do exactly what you want? What if we stripped away the clutter, the distractions, and left only the essentials of creativity? In a world obsessed with more autofocus points, more resolutions, more everything, the ZR feels like a deep breath. It's not for everyone, and Nikon knows that. This is a camera for the photographer who wants to slow down, for the filmmaker who wants a smaller, purer tool, for the creator who values intuition over complexity. Of course, minimalism has a learning curve. The first few hours with a ZR might feel awkward. You'll instinctively look for a viewfinder that isn't there. You'll miss the tactile feedback of extra dials. But the longer you use it, the more it rewards you. Suddenly, you're composing with your whole body, not just your eye. You're aware of light in ways you weren't before. You're present. And that's the magic Nikon is chasing here. The ZR also forces you to think differently about ergonomics. Without the viewfinder, your shooting stance changes. You hold the camera slightly away from your body. That opens up new possibilities for perspective. Low-angle shots, waist-level compositions, creative tilts, they all feel natural. Street photographers will love this because it makes you less intrusive. You're not pointing a camera at someone's face. You're observing quietly, fluidly. And let's talk about durability, because Nikon hasn't sacrificed toughness for aesthetics. The ZR's body is built from a magnesium alloy frame with full weather sealing. It's as rugged as any Nikon mirrorless you've handled before. The buttons have that signature tactile click. The ports feel tight and secure. It's not a fragile minimalist toy. It's a workhorse disguised as a design piece. Now imagine pairing it with Nikon's latest Z-mount lenses. The autofocus performance remains snappy and accurate, even in low light. Eye detection AF works flawlessly for both humans and animals. For video shooters, continuous tracking feels smooth and organic. None of that jittery pulsing you see on older systems. Nikon's color science keeps skin tones natural and consistent, which is crucial when you're shooting both photos and video on the same project. One of the most fascinating aspects of the ZR is how it changes your mental rhythm. Traditional cameras encourage a burst mentality. See something, raise the camera, fire away. The ZR slows that down. You start to notice light shifts, shadows, micro-expressions. You frame with more care. Every click feels considered. It's almost meditative. And in that slower pace, creativity finds room to breathe. For hybrid creators, that's gold. You can shoot stills and immediately roll video without changing your setup. The menu transition is seamless. You can assign one button to toggle between photo and video modes instantly. It feels like Nikon finally understands how modern content creators actually work. Now, let's address something practical: battery life. Without a viewfinder, the ZR relies entirely on that big display, which means power consumption is different. Nikon claims around 450 shots per charge, or roughly 90 minutes of continuous video. In real-world use, that's pretty accurate. But here's the good part. USB-C PD charging means you can plug in a power bank and keep shooting indefinitely. For travel, that's a lifesaver. Storage? Dual slots would have been nice, but Nikon opted for a single CF Express Type B slot to keep the body compact. It's fast, reliable, and handles high bitrate video without breaking sweat. If you're shooting professionally, carry multiple cards and you're fine. The Nikon ZR isn't trying to replace the Z6 III or the Z8. It's carving out its own space. Leaner, stop hiding behind a camera. When we face our subject directly, without that little barrier of glass, maybe we connect more. Maybe we see more. Maybe we create more honestly. And that's what makes the ZR fascinating, not just as a tool, but as an idea. It's a reminder that technology should serve vision, not the other way around. That simplicity can be powerful. That sometimes less really is more. So before you pick up your Nikon ZR again, take a moment to think about what it's asking of you. It's not begging you to shoot faster. It's inviting you to shoot better, to engage, to experiment, to rediscover the joy of seeing. And if you give it that chance, it just might change the way you create forever. Thanks for watching. If you found this breakdown helpful or inspiring, hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell so you don't miss what's next. We're diving deeper into hybrid workflows, color science, and the camera's redefining modern storytelling. This is your channel name, and remember, gear matters less than the vision behind it. Keep shooting, stay curious, and I'll see you in the next one. Peace.